I really like listening to the band Kane. Their songs, just some of the words that they say, it really speaks to my heart, and just the way they word things. But I listen to their entire album on the way to school when I'm driving all the way to Peebles, my 30-minute drive all the way out there for student teaching. And of course, you don't have service halfway through, so I just put my music on and I go. But a couple of their songs, one of them is Come Forth, and it talks about how Jesus is calling you and the Lord's not finished with you yet. And then there's Rise Up, and it talks about the story of Lazarus and how, can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling you? He wants to call you out of the grave just like Lazarus. So the title of my sermon tonight is Can You Hear Him? If you have your Bibles, I want to turn to John chapter 11. John chapter 11, I'm going to be reading verses 39 through 44. The beginning of John is the story of Lazarus' death and how Jesus rises him up until verse 44. But we're just going to look at the part where he rises Lazarus from the dead. Verse 39, Jesus said, Take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, said unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. Jesus said unto her, Said I not unto thee that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God? Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou hearest me always, but because of the people which stand by I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound with a napkin. Jesus said unto him, Loose him and let him go. So first I want to look at the position and what has you bound. In verse 44 it said Lazarus was bound hand and foot. What are you bound by tonight? Are you bound with your anxiety, your depression, bound by comparison, by jealousy? The enemy will try to take the things in your life and bind you with the things that may seem out of our control. I know that I have felt this way in my walk with Christ many, many times, and I've experienced this. The comparison is a thief of joy. And I've seen so many people going through their life and getting so many things, and I sit here and I think, why am I not like that? And that's what had me bound for so long, and comparing myself to so many other Christians, and just seeing how their walk with Christ was growing, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, why is nothing happening to me? I feel like I'm doing a great job. But that was my mindset. The devil had me wrapped up in that. He had me bound by that. You can get so low and defeated that you feel like you will never escape from where you are. Those thoughts will fill your mind and telling you that there is no way out. But we have Jesus. He calls us out by name, and just like he did Lazarus that day, he will do the same for you. Whatever has you bound cannot bind you forever when Jesus is in control. So not only do we see the position, but we see the power. In verse 43 and 44, and when he had thus spoken, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. And Jesus said unto them, Loose him and let him go. Lazarus was bound, as I said, hand and foot. But how did he come forth? If he was bound hand and foot, have you ever had your hands tied and your legs tied together? How hard is it to move around? And I know that some people play tricks on you and they tie your shoestrings together, but you think about that. He was bound completely. How did he come forth? I know that they had already started the burial process with Lazarus, and Martha said he was starting to smell because he had already been dead for 4 days. Lazarus could not have got up on his own. It is nearly impossible to get up when you are completely bound. But that is the thing about our God. He makes the impossible possible. For with God, nothing shall be impossible. So God had to pick Lazarus up and take him to the front of that tomb, and then Jesus said to loose him. So not only do we see the position that he was in and the power of God, but we see the purpose. I understand that as you read at the end of that part, it says that he wanted to show Martha the glory of God if she believed on it. If you look over in verses 23 through 27 in that same chapter, he told her, thy brother shall rise again. And Martha said, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? She said unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. So he wanted her to believe that he was going to rise Lazarus right then and there. Also, he wanted to show everyone around them that he was sent by God and that he was their Messiah. But as I was reading it, as I was studying this, I couldn't help but think, why did he have to raise Lazarus from the dead? Why him? I think that there were still things in Lazarus' life that were left unfinished. He hadn't fulfilled his purpose in the Lord. Do you know your purpose? Do you know your purpose for the Lord? The things that he has for you, the good thing is that you can find it in him. If we look over in the next chapter in verses 1 and 2, it says, Then Jesus 6 days before the Passover came to Bethany where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. I think this is so awesome because it shows that Jesus wants to have that relationship with you. He is not just going to call you out of your bondage and leave you to fend for yourself. Jesus wants to be there with you and grow with you together through life. You have to ask yourself this question, is God calling you into something? We all have a purpose, but are you ignoring your purpose for Christ? Are you pushing it aside? What or where is God calling you into? Can you hear his call? God is not finished with you yet, and we need to be freed from the things that have had us bound, things that are keeping us from reaching our purpose in the Lord. So there is an opportunity for you tonight. If you feel bound by the things of this world and your own anxiety, your depression, just the worries that you have that you carry for other people, you don't have to be bound by those anymore. It is so simple to just come to an altar of prayer and ask, Lord, just take these from me. I can't do it by myself. I need your help. So my question, can you hear him?